The Androvar cluster was burning. Cities that had stood for 1,000 years lay in ruins, their skies filled with smoke and ash. The Crythians, a warlike species feared across the galaxy, had attacked with unmatched ferocity. Their warships were massive, bristling with energy cannons, and their troops were relentless. Entire planets had fallen before them, and the Androvar world seemed destined to be next. In the center of the chaos, on the orbital station of Androvar Prime, a desperate council gathered. The leaders of the cluster huddled over holographic displays showing the movements of the Crythian fleet. Every simulation they ran ended the same way: annihilation. "We have to send the signal," said High Chancellor Varin, his voice trembling with worry. "We have no other choice. Maybe someone somewhere will hear us." The council members exchanged uncertain glances. Some argued that no one could or would help them. The galaxy had always looked at the Androvar as minor players, and the Crythians were known for wiping out entire civilizations without mercy. But there was a glimmer of hope. Deep in the archives of ancient records, Varin found something remarkable: a note about a distant planet called Earth. The galaxy's analysts had long dismissed Earth as a primitive, dangerous world, too harsh for any species to survive easily. Yet, the records mentioned humans. Resourceful, adaptable survivors of their planet's deadly conditions. Some even called them Deathworlders. Varin tapped the console, preparing the SOS transmission. It would carry every detail of the Crythian invasion, the locations of forces, and pleas for help. The message needed to reach any civilization willing to intervene, no matter how distant. As the message powered up, the Androvar people watched silently. Stars streaked across the station's viewports as the transmission launched into the void. The SOS signal carried a simple but desperate phrase: "Help us, before we are gone." Meanwhile, on Earth, life carried on in its own dangerous way. Humans lived everywhere, from frozen tundras to scorching deserts, from deep jungles to oceans teeming with unseen predators. Survival was the law of the land, and every human had learned to fight, endure, and adapt. On Earth's surface, a massive fleet of human ships hovered above the planet's cities. These were not the sleek, polished warships of the galaxy's superpowers. They were practical, rugged, and built to endure extreme conditions. Each vessel had been tested in Earth's harshest environments. Sandstorms, meteor strikes, deep ocean pressures, volcanic eruptions. These ships had survived them all. In the command center of the Earth Defense Coalition, Captain Mara Kine studied incoming signals. Her eyes widened as she decoded the transmission. It was unlike anything humans had ever received, a call for help from a distant part of the galaxy. The voice was urgent, fear-filled, pleading for aid. "Captain Kine," said Commander Gyro, her second-in-command, "do you realize what this is? This is not a drill. This is a real SOS, from outside the solar system." Mara nodded slowly. She had read about distant civilizations, the Androvar and the Crythians. Most humans dismissed galactic politics as someone else's problem, but she had always believed that survival meant being prepared for anything. And this was a test. "They think we're weak," Mara said, her voice calm but firm. "They don't know what Earth humans can do. We've survived deserts hotter than any alien sun, storms stronger than any spaceship engine, predators bigger than their war machines. Maybe it's time we show them who we really are." Gyro frowned. "You mean we're going to answer the call, go straight into Crythian territory?" Mara smiled, a flash of determination in her eyes. "Exactly, and we're going to survive." Across the galaxy, the Crythians continued their conquest. Their warlords, towering and metallic, watched the Androvar systems fall. They were confident, arrogant, and cruel. To them, the idea that humans could intervene was laughable. Primitive Deathworlders, one Crythian commander scoffed. "They are fragile. They cannot possibly survive beyond their world. Let them try. They will fail." But what the Crithians did not understand was that humans were not fragile. They were resilient. They were cunning. They had learned to adapt in environments that would kill any other species in hours. On Earth, life had forced them to evolve strategies for survival that no alien warlord could imagine. Back on Earth, preparations began. The fleet was small compared to the Crithian armadas, but it was formidable in its own way. Every ship had been reinforced for survival. Every crew member trained to think creatively in life-or-death situations. Mara reviewed the mission plans, making adjustments that no alien analyst could predict. She activated the comms. All units, listen up. We're heading into a system controlled by one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They think we're weak, but they don't know the first thing about humans. We're not just going in to help, we're going in to survive. And when we do, the galaxy will remember Earth. The crew nodded, a mixture of excitement and nerves buzzing in the air. They were about to become legends, or die trying. The journey to the Androvar cluster was long. Stars streaked past as the human fleet moved at incredible speeds, yet Mara made sure they traveled cautiously, using terrain, asteroid belts, and gas clouds for cover. Even in space, humans relied on survival instincts honed on Earth. During the voyage, Mara held briefings with her team. They studied alien behavior, analyzed Crithian tactics, and developed multiple contingency plans. Unlike other species who relied solely on superior technology, humans used ingenuity, intuition, and unpredictability. Remember, Mara said, pointing at a holographic map of the Androvar cluster, the Crithians think they understand warfare. They do not. They have never faced an enemy that thrives in Deathworld conditions. That enemy is us. We adapt, we improvise, and we survive. The crew absorbed her words. They were humans, yes, but they were also Earth's finest Deathworlders, trained to face impossible odds and come out alive. As they approached the outer edges of Androvar space, the first signs of destruction became visible. Planets bore deep scars from bombardments. Cities were reduced to glowing rubble. Smoke and fire rose into the atmosphere. It was worse than the simulations had predicted. And then, the humans received their first warning from Crithian scouts. The alien ships detected the fleet almost immediately. Sensors blared, and the Crithians sent a challenge through the communications array, a taunt, intended to intimidate the newcomers. Mara smiled faintly. Let them underestimate us. That is their first mistake. The fleet moved silently, using asteroids for cover, employing unorthodox maneuvers that no alien ship expected. Every decision was based on adaptability, every action designed to exploit the human's greatest strength, unpredictability. Meanwhile, back on Androvar Prime, the beleaguered leaders watched with hope and disbelief. The SOS signal had been received, and now the humans were coming. These Deathworlders might just be the last chance for survival. The story of humanity's arrival in the Androvar cluster spread quickly. Rumors reached even the Crithian command centers. Earthlings, they actually came. The Crithians laughed, of course. They believed they were invincible. But somewhere deep in the human fleet, Captain Mara Kine prepared her crew for the impossible. "Brace yourselves," she said. "The galaxy expects us to fail, but they don't know Earth humans. They will learn the hard way." And with that, the human fleet plunged further into Androvar space, ready to face the warlord Crithians, and to show the galaxy that humans were not just survivors, but fighters capable of changing the course of history. The first battle was yet to come, but the die was cast. The SOS had been answered, and the galaxy was about to discover a new truth. Earth's Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. The human fleet moved silently through the outer rim of Androvar space, using dense asteroid fields as cover. Each ship had been tested in extreme conditions on Earth, and the crews were trained to improvise when the unexpected occurred. To the Crithians, the fleet appeared small, weak, and almost insignificant, a primitive group that would crumble under the weight of their superior technology. Crithian scouts, massive and insect-like, detected the humans first. Their metallic voices crackled over communications. Primitive Deathworlders, turn back now or be destroyed. Captain Mara Kine studied the message on the bridge of her command ship, Haven's Edge, a rugged vessel designed to survive the harshest conditions of space and planetary combat. She did not flinch. "Tell them we're here to help," Mara said calmly, "but also that they're about to learn why humans survive where others fail." Her second-in-command, Commander Gyro, raised an eyebrow. "You're sure you want to taunt them?" Mara's eyes glinted with determination. "No. I'm making them underestimate us. That is their first mistake." The first encounter came sooner than expected. A Crithian strike group, sleek and deadly, moved to intercept the human fleet. Their weapons glowed with lethal energy, and their numbers far outmatched the humans. To any outsider, it would have seemed hopeless. But humans did not fight like other species. Mara's crew knew the value of adaptability and improvisation. As the Crithians approached, the human ship split into smaller squads, moving unpredictably through the asteroid field. Using the natural cover, they launched surprise attacks. One small detachment, led by Lieutenant Rhea Saul, deployed modified drones designed for reconnaissance and sabotage. These drones were not ordinary. They were adapted from Earth's most extreme survival tools. They could withstand crushing pressure, blistering heat, and intense radiation. Using the asteroid field, the drones slipped past Crithian shields and attacked the alien ships from blind spots, damaging critical systems. The Crithians screeched in disbelief. How can this be? They should not survive here." Mara smiled as she watched the chaos unfold. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to fail. And yet they moved with precision, courage, and an instinct for survival no alien species could anticipate. The human fleet pressed on toward Androvar Prime, knowing that time was short. The Crithians had already begun bombarding cities below. Each passing minute meant more destruction, more lives lost. On the planet's surface, Mara's fleet provided support to Androvar forces. Humans did not have the numbers or the raw power of the Crithians, but they used terrain, traps, and environmental hazards to their advantage. One particularly daring operation involved the human team landing on a devastated city and luring Crithian ground forces into a collapsing canyon. The humans set explosive charges disguised as rubble and debris. As the Crithians advanced, the canyon shook, stones tumbled, and the aliens were trapped in a deadly chokehold. Lieutenant Saul radioed back, "Canyon secured. Enemy trapped. We're holding them until reinforcements arrive." The Androvar forces, who had watched humanity's approach with skepticism, began to gain hope. For the first time, they realized these primitive Deathworlders were not fragile. They were clever, daring, and relentless in their determination. Meanwhile, Mara coordinated a coordinated strike on a Crithian orbital station. The station controlled the enemy fleet's movements and communications. Conventional attacks had failed, but humans relied on ingenuity rather than brute force. Using magnetic field manipulations and debris from the asteroid belt, Mara's team created a diversion that drew Crithian defenses away from the station. Then, a small squad of human engineers infiltrated the station using a combination of stealth suits and repurposed survival drones. Within hours, the station's main systems were disrupted, causing confusion among Crithian ships in orbit. "This is just the beginning," Mara told her crew. "They will think they are winning, but that is exactly what we want." The Crithians, increasingly frustrated, sent reinforcements. They began targeting the human fleet directly, attempting to overwhelm them with superior firepower. Energy beams tore through the vacuum of space, and explosions rocked human ships. Yet, humans adapted quickly. They moved unpredictably, used asteroids as shields, and deployed rapid countermeasures. Even when their systems were damaged, humans repaired them in creative ways. Using materials scavenged from nearby debris and repurposed drones, they kept the ships operational against all odds. The Crithians, who relied on advanced technology and brute strength, could not predict these improvisations. On one front, a small human detachment found themselves trapped on a partially destroyed Androvar city. Crithian soldiers advanced, confident of victory. The humans had no backup, no reinforcements, and only limited weapons. Lieutenant Rhea Saul assessed the situation. "We can't fight them head-on. We need to use the environment." They led the Crithians through narrow streets, over unstable bridges, and into a section of the city rigged with controlled collapses. Rocks, debris, and fire turned the city into a death trap. Crithians fell trapped or were forced to retreat. One alien soldier shouted, "Impossible! These humans, they survive everything." Saul responded grimly, "That's because we adapt. That's what makes us human." As the day progressed, the human fleet managed to push the Crithian forces back, securing a small foothold near Androvar Prime. Their presence gave the Androvar defenders breathing room to regroup. Communication channels, once filled with panic, now buzzed with cautious optimism. Mara convened her team in the command room of Haven's Edge. "Today, we showed them what humans can do. They thought we were weak, fragile, easy to destroy. They were wrong. And tomorrow, we go further." Gyro nodded. "But the Crithians will learn. They'll adapt too." "Are we ready for what comes next?" Mara's expression was calm, almost serene. "We don't just adapt, we survive, we think differently, we fight differently. That is what they will never understand, and that is how we win." That night, as the human fleet rested in orbit, sensors picked up new Crithian movements. They were regrouping, sending faster and deadlier ships to engage the humans. Mara studied the incoming data, recognizing the pattern. The Crithians were confident but overconfident. They assumed humans would fight predictably. Humans did not fight predictably. The next phase of the battle would test every skill the crew had learned on Earth. They would face traps, ambushes, and overwhelming odds. But if humanity had proven anything in its history, it was that the species thrived where others would perish. Even in the darkness of space, Mara felt the familiar pulse of determination. The galaxy thought humans were fragile, primitive, and disposable. The Crithians believed the same. They were about to learn their first mistake. Humans survived everything, and they were just getting started. As dawn approached over the Androvar cluster, the human fleet prepared for the next engagement. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and in alien territory. Yet their spirits were unbroken. Every decision, every movement, every plan relied on human adaptability, creativity, and resilience. And for the first time, the galaxy began to whisper, "These Earthlings, they are different. They are dangerous." Mara stood on the bridge, gazing at the stars. "Tomorrow, we show them why humans are not just survivors. We show them why humans win." The first major clash with the Crithians loomed, but humanity was ready. They had endured the deadliest environments on Earth. They had faced impossible odds and lived. And now, the galaxy would see that the Deathworlders of Earth were a force to be reckoned with. The Androvar cluster burned under the Crithian siege, but the humans were no longer a mere fleet of outsiders. They had established a foothold, using the environment, cunning tactics, and unyielding courage to push back a foe that had never seen anything like them. The Crithians, who had assumed an easy conquest, were beginning to realize they had underestimated the Deathworlders of Earth. Captain Mara Kine stood on the bridge of Haven's Edge, studying the incoming data. Sensors showed Crithian reinforcements converging on their position, and Androvar cities remained under bombardment. The challenge was monumental, but Mara was undeterred. Humans thrived in impossible situations. "The Crithians think they can corner us," Mara said to her crew. They think they have the upper hand, but this is exactly the moment we turn the tide. Their confidence will be their weakness, and we will exploit it. Commander Jero frowned. We're still outnumbered. If we make a mistake, it's over. Mara's eyes gleamed. Then we don't make a mistake. We make the unexpected. That's what humans do best. The plan was bold. Mara intended to strike at the heart of the Crithian fleet, a heavily defended flagship called Vorgath's Wrath. Destroying it would cripple enemy coordination, create confusion, and give the Androvar forces a chance to regroup. But attacking head-on was impossible. The Crithian fleet's shields were too strong, their weapons too advanced. The humans would need to turn the environment into a weapon, just as they had on Earth. Using the dense asteroid field near Androvar Prime, Mara devised a daring strategy. Smaller human strike teams would move ahead under radar cover, planting magnetic and gravitational disruptors among the asteroids. These devices were designed to interfere with Crithian navigation and targeting systems. Then the main fleet would lure the Crithians into the field, where their ships would stumble, collide, and become vulnerable. Lieutenant Rhea Saul shook her head as she studied the plan. This is insane. It could destroy our own fleet if the timing is off. Mara smiled. Exactly. That's why they'll never see it coming. Humans survive by taking risks others won't, by thinking differently, by adapting. The humans executed the plan with precision. Teams moved silently through the asteroid belt, planting the disruptors in secret. Mara coordinated every movement, accounting for enemy patrols, orbital mechanics, and the unpredictable nature of space hazards. When the Crithian flagship and its escort fleet entered the field, the disruptors activated. Sensors failed, navigation systems went haywire, and energy beams misfired. Ships collided with asteroids, explosions rocked the fleet, and chaos spread like wildfire. Mara's fleet struck at the disoriented Crithians with everything they had. Boarding shuttles deployed from hidden positions, striking from angles no alien commander expected. Engineers on human ships hacked into Crithian systems, redirecting weapons fire back at their own fleet. The Crithians screamed in confusion. Their flagship, Vorgath's Wrath, had never faced such unpredictable attacks. Mara's voice echoed through comms, calm and confident. Humans adapt, we survive, and we fight in ways you cannot understand. On the ground, Androvar forces took inspiration from the humans. Civilians, soldiers, and engineers coordinated attacks using traps, barricades, and environmental hazards to defend key cities. The once hopeless Androvar defenders now had hope. "This is incredible," said Commander Lyra of the Androvar forces. "They are unstoppable. I have never seen anything like this." Mara knew the fight was far from over. The Crithians would not accept defeat lightly. They would retaliate with even more force, but humans had already broken the enemy's confidence. Crithian morale was shaken, and their strategic advantage was gone. The most critical move came when Mara led a daring boarding mission to the Crithian flagship. She and a small team of elite human warriors infiltrated Vorgath's Wrath using stealth suits and compact propulsion units. Every step required careful planning and flawless execution. Inside the flagship, the humans faced guards and security systems, but they relied on ingenuity rather than brute force. Using environmental knowledge and quick thinking, they disabled power cores, rerouted life support systems, and sowed chaos among Crithian ranks. Mara hacked into the flagship's communication network, broadcasting false commands to the Crithian fleet. Confusion spread as ships fired at each other, formations broke and panic set in. The humans moved like shadows, striking where the enemy least expected, exploiting the Crithians' reliance on rigid strategy. Lieutenant Saul marveled at the scene. "They're falling apart. They can't think the way we do." Mara replied quietly, "That's the advantage of a Deathworlder. We survive where others cannot. We think, adapt, and overcome." As chaos erupted, the Androvar forces seized the opportunity. With the Crithian flagship in disarray, planetary defenses pushed back the remaining attackers. Cities were reinforced, civilian casualties were minimized, and morale soared. The Androvar Council, watching from the orbital station, could hardly believe their eyes. "The humans, they've changed everything," High Chancellor Varin said. "They've turned the tide of this war." Meanwhile, the Crithian warlords convened in panic. "These humans, they should have died," one screeched. "Why do they survive? Why do they fight so differently?" "They adapt," another said, fear creeping into its voice. "They use their world, their instincts, everything we do not understand. We cannot predict them." Outside the flagship, Mara and her team initiated the final phase. Using explosive charges and precision timing, they destroyed the ship's power core, sending a massive shockwave through the Crithian fleet. Ships lost control, crashed into each other, and broke formation. The flagship itself began to crumble, its energy shields flickering before collapsing entirely. The humans barely escaped, retreating back to Haven's edge as the flagship exploded in a brilliant display of fire and debris. The Crithians were stunned. Their coordinated assault was shattered. Their warlord flagship was gone. For the first time, the galaxy began to realize that humans were more than just survivors. They were strategic, inventive, and dangerous. Back on Androvar Prime, humans and Androvar soldiers celebrated a hard-won victory. The SOS that had once seemed hopeless had now produced results no one could have imagined. Mara gathered her crew. "Today, we proved something important," she said. "Humans survive in ways no one expects. We adapt, we endure, and when the galaxy underestimates us, we will always find a way to turn the impossible into the possible." Gyro nodded. "And the Crithians, they won't forget this." Mara smiled. "No, they won't. And neither will the rest of the galaxy. They are learning what we already know. Humans are not fragile. We are survivors. We are fighters. And we will always rise when the odds are against us." That night, as the human fleet repaired ships and resupplied, Mara reflected on what had been accomplished. They had faced overwhelming odds, been outnumbered and outgunned, yet their adaptability, ingenuity, and courage had allowed them to succeed. The Crithians were no longer invincible. Sensors picked up Crithian communications. Panic, confusion, and disbelief echoed through the void. Humans had shattered the myth of Crithian superiority. The Deathworlders of Earth had proven themselves capable of turning a hopeless situation into a strategic advantage. Mara looked out at the stars. "This is just the beginning," she said softly. "The galaxy thinks it knows us. It doesn't. And when they see what humans can do, they will understand. Nothing can stop us when we fight as one." Even the Androvar civilians whispered stories of the humans' bravery. Children drew images of strange ships and fearless warriors. Soldiers told tales of cunning attacks and impossible victories. Humanity's legend was growing, an unshakable force rising from a planet everyone had dismissed as weak and dangerous. The Crithians, enraged and humiliated, retreated temporarily to regroup. They would return stronger and angrier, but Mara and her crew had learned something even more valuable. Humans do not fear impossible odds. They do not follow expectations. They survive. And when survival becomes a battle, they turn it into victory. As the Androvar cluster slowly began to recover, Mara sent a final message to the fleet. "We have changed the course of this war, but the battle is not over. We will continue to fight, to adapt, and to show the galaxy the true strength of humanity. Remember, every obstacle is an opportunity. Every enemy underestimation is our advantage. And no matter what comes next, we will endure." The stars seemed to shine brighter that night, as if reflecting humanity's unyielding spirit. And somewhere deep in the void, Crithian commanders realized a terrifying truth. Earth's Deathworlders could never be controlled, never be predicted, and never be defeated easily. The humans had turned the tide. The galaxy had begun to notice. And the next chapter in their story, the final reckoning, was waiting just beyond the horizon. The Androvar cluster had seen the first spark of hope, and now the humans were ready to turn it into a blaze. After weeks of skirmishes, tactical strikes, and daring maneuvers, Captain Mara Kine knew the time had come for the final push. The Crithians, though shaken and enraged by the destruction of their flagship Vorgath's Wrath, were still dangerous. Their remaining fleets were scattered but deadly, determined to crush anyone who opposed them. Mara stood on the bridge of Haven's Edge, staring at the holographic map of the Androvar cluster. She pointed at multiple enemy positions. They think they can isolate us, break us apart, and destroy the Androvar worlds, but we've already proven they are wrong. Now we finish this together with our allies. Commander Gyro studied the map, a hint of awe in her expression. We're outnumbered. The Crithians still have numbers and firepower. Mara smiled, calm and resolute. Numbers don't win wars. Strategy, courage, and adaptability do. And humans, we have plenty of all three. The humans coordinated with Androvar forces, creating a complex plan that combined guerrilla-style tactics, deception, and precise strikes. They exploited the Crithians' overconfidence and rigid command structure. Every move was designed to confuse the enemy, turn their technology against them, and amplify the human strengths. A fleet of human fighters, small but highly maneuverable, moved ahead to draw the Crithians into an ambush. Mara's engineers had rigged space debris fields with magnetic disruptors and energy traps, ensuring that any aggressive maneuver by the Crithians would backfire spectacularly. Lieutenant Rhea Saul grinned as she prepared her squad. This is it. The whole galaxy is watching, and they'll see why humans survive. Mara nodded. Not just survive, they'll see why humans win. The battle began with a sudden, blinding flash of energy. Crithian ships entered the trap, confident that the humans would be overwhelmed. Instead, they found themselves disoriented, their systems failing as the magnetic disruptors interfered with navigation and weapons control. Ships collided with floating asteroids, while others fired upon each other by mistake. From the bridge of Haven's Edge, Mara watched as the plan unfolded. Smaller human strike teams boarded vulnerable Crithian ships, using agility, wit, and precision to disable weapons and systems. These were not brute force assaults, they were surgical, intelligent, and utterly unexpected. One Crithian commander barked in disbelief. How can they fight like this? They are not following any strategy. They are unpredictable. Exactly, Mara said, her voice calm and steady. That is humanity. On the planets below, Androvar cities had been reinforced using lessons learned from the human troops. Civilians joined in efforts, setting up defensive traps, barricades, and supply lines. The combination of human ingenuity and Androvar courage created a network of resistance the Crithians could not penetrate. In one daring maneuver, human engineers used a damaged Crithian energy platform to create a controlled explosion, collapsing a canyon that had trapped hundreds of enemy troops. The survivors fled in panic, demoralized and confused. Mara's communications officer reported, "Captain, Androvar forces are pushing forward. Civilians are organized. The enemy morale is dropping rapidly." Mara's eyes softened for a moment. They believed they would be helpless. Now they see that humans fight not only with weapons, but with the mind, the heart, and the will to survive. The climax of the battle came when Mara led a final strike against the Crithian command center orbiting the main Androvar planet. A daring squad of human warriors infiltrated the station, navigating its labyrinthine corridors with stealth suits and precision tactics. The Crithians, relying on rigid protocols, were completely unprepared for humans who moved like shadows, striking where least expected. Inside the station, Mara and her team disabled the main energy core, rerouted life support, and set controlled detonations. Communication systems were taken over, broadcasting false commands across the Crithian fleet. Confusion spread like wildfire, and the remaining enemy ships began targeting one another. Lieutenant Saul, moving through the chaos, laughed quietly. "They're destroying themselves, just like we planned." Mara's expression was grim but proud. "Humans survive because we think, adapt, and never give up." Today, they see what the galaxy has always ignored. Earthlings are not weak. We are unstoppable when we fight together. In orbit, the Crithian fleet collapsed into disarray. Ships were disabled, destroyed, or fleeing in panic. The remaining warlords could not regain control. Their supposed superiority had been shattered, and the Androvar cluster had been saved. Back on the planets, Androvar civilians and soldiers cheered as human forces returned from their orbital operations. They had witnessed bravery, cunning, and adaptability on a scale they had never imagined. Humans, once dismissed as primitive Deathworlders, had saved entire worlds from annihilation. High Chancellor Varen addressed the recovering citizens and soldiers. "The humans, they have shown us the strength that comes from unity, courage, and unbreakable spirit. They have saved our worlds. We owe them our lives, and the galaxy owes them respect." Captain Mara Kine and her crew gathered one last time aboard Haven's Edge. The battle was over, the Crithians in retreat, and the Androvar cluster liberated. Mara spoke to her team, her voice quiet but strong. "Today, the galaxy learned an important truth. Humans are not fragile. We do not give up when faced with impossible odds. We adapt, we endure, and we triumph." This victory is not just for Androvar, it is for Earth, for every human who has ever faced danger and survived. This is who we are. This is humanity. Commander Gyro placed a hand on her shoulder. "You were right. They underestimated us. And now the galaxy knows humans are a force unlike any other." Mara nodded, looking out at the stars. "Let them remember. Let them tell stories of Earth's Deathworlders. We survived what no one thought possible, and we turned survival into victory." The Crithians, humiliated and defeated, retreated into deep space. Messages of their failure spread quickly, and other galactic civilizations began to pay attention. Humans, previously dismissed as weak and primitive, were now regarded with respect and cautious fear. News channels across the galaxy broadcasted images of human ingenuity, courage, and triumph. Children on distant worlds drew pictures of Earth's rugged warriors, inspired by the story of survival against impossible odds. Scholars debated humanity's adaptability, while military strategists realized that no enemy could predict human tactics. And somewhere, Mara and her crew prepared to return to Earth. Their mission had been completed, but their legend had only begun. As Haven's Edge slipped back into hyperspace, Mara sent a final message across the galaxy. "To all who doubt humanity, look to the stars. Look at what we have achieved. We are survivors, fighters, and innovators. Underestimate us at your peril. We are humans, and we endure. We thrive, and we will always rise." The message echoed across systems, reaching every corner of the Androvar cluster and beyond. The galaxy would not forget the courage, ingenuity, and spirit of Earth's Deathworlders. For the first time in recorded galactic history, humans were recognized not just as survivors of a harsh world, but as a powerful, unpredictable force capable of shaping the future of the galaxy. And on Earth, Captain Mara Kine looked up at the night sky, knowing that humanity had finally claimed its place among the stars, not as weak primitives but as legends. The SOS had been answered. The Androvar worlds were safe. The Crithians had learned the cost of underestimating humans, and the galaxy, forever changed, would never again look at Earth the same way. Humans had triumphed. Humans had endured. Humans had won. The Deathworlders of Earth had proven that survival was just the beginning, and that humanity's spirit was the galaxy's greatest weapon.